Welcome to Cut and Splice. This is Gil,
This is Jason.
And this is Matt.
and today we're doing a first episode where we're gonna be discussing two movies and comparing between them. We will try to do this from time to time, uh, comparing movies that have some similarities but are still very different, and and doing some comparison and analysis. But of course, spending the first part of the discussion mostly reviewing and recommending the movies without spoilers, and then we'll get into the spoilers in the second part. One question I had is, Matt, you mentioned briefly that you had a very different reaction this time to Stardust when you rewatched it. And then, of course, that's bad on me. We're discussing Stardust and the Princess Bride, two fantasy adventure romance movies. So, Matt, you yes, you mentioned something about your reaction to it this time, rewatching it.
So trying to avoid spoilers. There's a moment in Stardust where okay, let's put it this way. With fantasy movies, yes, you are supposed to suspend your disbelief. There are flying ships in the air and all kinds of nonsensical crap that are all kind of cool and you just buy it. But eventually human beings have to behave like human beings. And toward the end of Stardust, there's just this one moment where I'm just looking at the main character's behavior, what the main character said, and thinking there is no way that any reasonable person will say that. It is just it just kills the entire movie for me. And
Wow.
Okay. Oh, we need to get to that in the second part then. Yeah.
yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, I'm jumping the gun, but yeah, the first time that I saw the movie, I would have rated it like an 8 out of 10. After watching it again, it's like a 5 out of 10.
Wow,
Uh,
that's
it, it
intriguing.
it just
So stay
dropped.
tuned, everyone.
Yeah. So uh yeah, I can't go further into it without a spoiler, but yeah, you guys go ahead.
Well, Jason, your reaction when I brought this up as an idea for our first episode with the
Was
two
mixed.
movies was mixed, exactly. So, what was the reason for that?
Uh, well, I absolutely love both of these movies, so that I didn't have any problem with at all. Talking about them, I thought would be a lot of fun. Rewatching them would be fun. My only concern was simply that while we were tossing out ideas of what we would do if we did one of these things with two movies and kind of sort of comparing them and whatever, we talked about a number of things like sequels, remakes, and stuff that most people consider comparable. Like, just to throw it out there, we'd said some war movies like Saving Private Ryan and whatever, and things like that. It's like, movies that came out right around the same time, and just stuff like that. To me, these movies, while they're definitely both fantasy movies and they both involve some similar content that you find in most fantasy movies, like princesses and swashbuckling adventures and all sorts of, magic and things like that. They're separated by decades of time, and they are very different. I didn't see. I just kind of said like, "Wow, it's kind of a weird thing to compare." I guess that's the bottom line. I thought it was an odd thing to compare, but I think it'll be good. I did feel that way initially after watching them. Right now, I did kind of like write down a few little notes of like, wow, that was kind of similar there, and whatever. But that was my thoughts.
Okay, so once you revisited them, you felt like it made a bit more sense.
I think it's a weird thing to compare and contrast because I don't think they're similar enough in story. But I mean, they are similar movies in general, so it's fine, and there's no rules to what we're doing here, so whatever.
Yeah, no, I can tell you my rationale is when I saw Stardust, and I think I saw it in theaters, and it was 2007, so I think we were still in film school.
Yeah, we were.
Um, yeah, I think I graduated 2008
Yeah,
or something.
We all
yeah, it's
graduated.
Oh, we all,
yeah, it
yeah,
came out in 2007, so it's exactly 20 years after The Princess Bride.
yes, which is a pretty clean um,
Yeah,
separation there. But when I watched it, and I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan, who the book is based on. But I had never read the book, so I was intrigued, and I knew it was one of more of his like childish, not childish, but just more like playful fantasy stories, like more early ones, not as serious as some of the other stuff that he's written. So I was curious, and when I watched it, the only movie I could compare it to, in my mind, not recent times, but just in my movie lexicon, was Princess Bride. It's not as good, obviously. The Princess Bride hold this very special place in a lot of people's hearts, and this will be the fun part to get into because for me revisiting the Princess Bride, I had some issues, which is kind of funny. Stardust, I felt like it was pretty much in the same place. I did rate it an 8 back then, and unless Matt convinces me otherwise in the second part, I think I would stick to an 8. It's pretty solid through and through. It's very inventive. It's very creative. It's the tone is not perfect, which is why the Princess Bride is better because they just really nailed the tone in Princess Bride. But it's good. It's a really rare movie, like a romance adventure. I know there's a bunch of them. Like there's Labyrinth and what's the Willow. There's a few of those from the 80s, especially like those.
Willow doesn't have a whole lot of romance in it, though.
Not romance, but just these fantasy. Yeah, and then these are like maybe more kiddie movies too, like the Never Ending Story is another one. I'm just
Sure.
thinking about fantasy adventure
Yeah.
that are kind of fun movies and memorable movies. But The Princess Bride is a very specific kind of movie. It's almost when I watched it, it's like, oh, this is kind of like a Mel Brooks movie. Like it was trying to be a
It
Mel
is
Brooks movie,
similar,
but it's
yeah.
not as funny. Like it's almost like a
Yeah.
parody of what this would be. Only it's not laugh out loud comedy. So it's weird. It's skirting
right.
this very odd tone. Yeah.
It's more tongue in cheek, but uh,
But not
yeah,
laugh out loud. Yeah.
right.
It's
But
got some
yeah,
laugh out loud moments.
yeah,
Yeah.
it certainly does. But I mean, I think that's the thing that stuck out to me because I watched Stardust and The Princess Bride back to back. I mean, obviously, these were both rewatches. I just sat down and watched both of these movies back to back. And
It's a good
I've
way of
got to
doing it.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got to say, I don't even think that Stardust is in the same stratosphere as The Princess Bride. It's not, it is not even close to as good
You're wrong.
as The Princess
It's
Bride.
yeah, no, I think
Uh,
Matt definitely has been convinced otherwise with this rewatch. but
so,
but I will say The Princess Bride, I rated it. It's one of those rare movies that I rated a 10, and I
yeah,
think I might have to demote it to a 9, and I'll explain it in the second part.
all
But
right.
yes, but The Princess Bride to me, the closest comparison I can make is a movie I rated a 9, but it's The Dark Knight. To me, The Dark Knight should be like an 8. but but for some reason I forgive
Heretic.
all the what?
I
Sorry?
just said heretic
That what for what?
for saying that The Dark Knight should be an 8.
Oh no, no,
Yeah,
I know. No, but it's
but
a movie
yeah,
that could even possibly be considered a 10 for a lot of people, I'm sure. But it's got some
It
issues.
is a
Like there's
10.
some stuff that doesn't make sense. What? For you it's a 10?
Wait, which one were you talking about now?
The Dark
Yeah,
Knight.
probably close. Anyway, whatever. Continue. We're not
Anyways,
here to
never
talk
mind.
about that.
No, no, of course. But anyways, I'm just trying to make a comparison for to illustrate. But that's what The Princess Bride is. It's it's a perfect movie with flaws, like with mistakes, but you forgive the mistakes because as you're watching it, it swoons you. It romances you. It's making you fall in love with it, even though, yeah. So it almost casts a spell on you, which Stardust attempts to do, or maybe not. And maybe that's the difference that Matt is talking about. It's just it doesn't cast that same spell. It's tongue in cheek. It's fun. It's a good cast. It's very inventive. It's very colorful. There's a lot of different characters, but ultimately it just doesn't enchant you in the same way that the Princess Bride does.
Well, obviously, we'll have to like discuss all of this in a few minutes when we get done with talking about the movies independently and whatever. But just throwing this out there, my overall argument before hearing anything you guys have to say would be that it absolutely does. I think the way you just put that, describing the Princess Bride, is absolutely perfect. And I would say that Stardust does that as well. But anyway.
Yeah, so that's a good. So overall, what's your ratings of them, like as it stands now?
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
Probably like a solid 9.
For what?
Both?
Yeah, for both. Oh wow, so they're equal. I
Just
mean,
about.
not super equal, but yeah, but
Yeah.
okay.
No, they both have different strengths, but as we've said, they're very similar movies, and they affect me the same way for the most part. Obviously, I have a hell of a lot more nostalgia for the Princess Bride, but yeah. Anyway, that's right around where I'd put them probably.
Okay, and so Matt, you're with a 5 for Stardust.
Yeah. 8.5 for the Princess Bride, 5 for Stardust.
Okay, that's a pretty big gap to bridge. But yeah, and I guess for me, I'm torn whether I'm gonna demote the Princess Bride to a 9, but we'll let Matt convince me. Oh no, so sorry. Sorry. Matt convinced me about Stardust. Like, sorry, that it's an 8, but might should be less. And then I'll try to convince myself that the Princess Bride should be a 9 out of 10. But at the moment, I have them at a 10 and an 8. Yeah, the Princess Bride is definitely something special for me. That's why it's one of the few that I rated 10. Yeah, should we get to the second part and
Yep.
spoilers?
Sure.
Okay. I think we should start with Matt's thing because it's we'll start from the ending and make our way back.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tristan in Stardust, after he sleeps with Claire Danes' character, she's the star that fell from the sky and created a crater, and he's supposed to find her and bring her back to, his true love over the wall, which, by the way, I mean, the wall is something that he could have just hopped over at any time, which is another problem. But what he sleeps with her, and he decides that he needs to go across the wall, which, by the way, should have been more difficult than it was, to find his non-girlfriend and tell her, hey, I found somebody else and I love her and I'm leaving you. And instead of leaving the, I don't know, the landlord or whoever the hell is running the damn inn.
Is the innkeeper.
Right. Yeah, the innkeeper. Sorry. Instead of leaving the innkeeper with a message to Claire Danes of, hey, I love you, I'm committed to you, I'm just letting you know that I slipped out for the night to go let this other girl know that I'm not interested anymore, and I found you and I love you, and this is all good between us. No, instead he leaves the innkeeper with a note of, oh, well, I found my true love and goodbye, or something, like something nebulous.
Oh my God, Matt.
Well, Jason's
I-
gonna eat you for that. Yeah.
It's
I
not a
mean,
matter of hate. I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I
No, I mean
mean,
that's pretty easily explained.
Yeah. Matt, are you serious? You don't understand that scene?
It is a
I
bit.
understand it. It's bullshit.
No.
No, it's not. What's
I
bullshit
agree.
about it?
I agree that it's bullshit because it's a bit of a stretch because the innkeeper is supposed to be what he is inebriated or something like
No, he's
Yeah.
asleep.
he's asleep. Yeah, he doesn't remember exactly what the note is, so he's paraphrasing and he's paraphrasing
Yeah,
incorrectly.
he's
But
paraphrasing wrong.
that whole thing is a stretch to begin with because like Matt says, why does he need to go back if he's not interested in her just to
Oh
be
my God, you
spiteful?
guys are crazy.
No, I mean, I get it because he's a gentleman. He wants to bring her what he promised, in spite of
That's
the
like,
fact that he's no
okay,
longer
what we're
interested.
discussing is probably one of the strongest things about this movie.
Okay,
I
so
remember
go
seeing
ahead.
this in theaters, and when the first time I saw this movie, when he wakes up with her, I was like, "Oh my God, this movie's over. This is so like I'm so happy that everything turned out so wonderful." And then he gets up, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you? You're a fucking moron!" I was like so mad, and I'm like watching him make these horrible mistakes, and then the innkeeper incorrectly paraphrases to her, and so on, all these things that you're just describing. And then the moment he goes to Sienna Miller, Victoria is her name. And then we get to see Daredevil defeat Superman, which is awesome.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, we get to see that scene. This is like movie making, like this is like a class in movie making. It's perfect. How do you tell a story like that of a person growing up and coming of age? As he says in the narrator, even says Ian McKellen said Magneto says in the beginning of the movie that this isn't a story about the baby becoming a boy. It's about the boy becoming a man. What more grown-up thing to do than to face the person who he was incorrectly infatuated with? That's a childlike thing to be infatuated with somebody. He has found true love. He has no fear of not caring for her or anything like that. He is a little naive because he doesn't think about the fact that there's dangers that could come up in that situation or whatever. But he goes and tells her, "Hey, just so you know, I found somebody else. I'm really happy. You live your life, blah, blah, blah." When she reacts the way she does to him showing up, that's when he kind of feels entitled enough to say, "You need to grow up," and so on and so forth, and all these things like that. Okay, so it all plays out the way it does. But I mean, what a more perfect way to show how much he's grown up. He does the responsible, mature, and like gentlemanly thing to do in that scenario, and it's entirely unnecessary. He's only doing it out of like a sense of obligation that's almost archaic at this point, but it's a perfect way to show how much he's grown up.
Is it not showing that you've grown up to show that you've actually learned how to use the English fucking language?
I don't understand how you don't get what happened. He literally asked for a pen and paper because his first like thought was, "I'm going to leave her a note." And then when the innkeeper doesn't give him one, he's frustrated. He's like, "I need to hurry up and do this so I can be back before she wakes up," and so on and so forth. Just be back as soon as possible, whatever. And he just tells her, "Okay, give her a message." And he tells her, or he tells the guy, "I've gone to see Victoria to tell her I'm not interested in her. I have found my true love and I'm going to go live with her for the rest of my life." That way, when Claire Danes wakes up and goes, "Huh, where is my man?" And she goes downstairs and she finds the dude, and he says, and in his mind, he's like seeing this play out better. And he's like, "Oh, he told me that he went to go see this girl, Victoria, because he had to tell her that he's not interested anymore and he has found the love of his life and he's going to live with her for the rest of his life. And that's going to make her swoon and be like, oh, that's great. I'm going to wait for him in bed." That's what his plan was. He didn't expect that the guy was probably like hungover.
I don't buy it. I mean,
What?
it's I no, I don't buy it. It's just I mean, I've been drunk several times in my life. I've been hungover several times in my life. I've never heard. Oh, hey, I love this girl more than anything else in the world. I am committed to this girl. Just let her know that I'm going to ride into town just to dump this other girl. And then I'm gonna be right back and have the guy. I'm not going to wake up the next morning and say, "Oh, he said that he found the love of his life," and you're just here. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. It's just not good storytelling. It is, and it is a massive blemish on this movie, and it's something that
Blemish.
should have been better. I mean,
Harsh words. Yeah.
so anyway, Gil, you come in and
Well,
try
real
to
quick, Gil, I was just going to
Yes.
say,
navigate this.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
actually will admit that I did find that scene this time watching it through. Once I realized what was about to happen again, because I was like probably only the third time I've ever seen the movie, and I definitely haven't seen it in many years. When I saw the scene playing out, I did particularly the part where the guy gives the wrong message to Yvain. In that scene, I thought to myself, you know, just because of how badly he screws it up, it would have been better for us to literally see the scene of Charlie Cox, of Tristan, saying the right message. If we saw him with like love in his voice and everything, just proclaiming this is what he's about to do. And by the way, Matt, you talked about like using regular English, whatever. The dude's been living in a fantasy land for the last week. I mean, it's rubbing off on him. He's being Shakespearean and poetic and shit. Anyway, so I just feel like if
Okay.
we could have seen him give the message correctly and then have him leave and we start seeing the scene play out, then she comes downstairs and we see him mumble off his half-assed, recitation of what Tristan said, it would have been a little more, I don't know, just clear, I guess.
To me, I sort of agree with Matt, but at the same time, I think it does work as a device. It's just a clumsy device, and it's tongue in cheek, which is what this movie is, which is why maybe it's okay. I wouldn't drop it to a 5 for that. I might drop it to like I wouldn't even drop it to a 7 for that, because again, just like Princess Bride, they're both enchanting movies, so you sort of forgive the imperfections, and it's really tough to nail the tone just right with all these things. But yes, this could have been done differently. It could have been a note that he left her on the nightstand and the wind blew and she couldn't find it. And she can't find him. And I know that's a bit more cliche because it happens a lot that somebody doesn't get the message and then they are left to wonder and let their imagination go. It could have been a different device to accomplish the same thing. Because she has her doubts. She's not overly confident. If he disappears with no explanation, it could have worked better. Another thing that I would say, and then I want to say something about the Princess Bride. Remember that spot when the one who has his mother under the
The
spell,
witch,
the witch, um, uh,
Ditchwater Sal.
yeah, why does she turn him into a mouse, but then actually lets him free? It's that scene reads to me as if she's not honest. That she tells him she's gonna get him there in one piece, but she then turns him into a mouse and was gonna like maybe entrap him or something, or like not let him go. But then she takes him there. She she takes off the spell so he becomes a person again, and then tells him here like that's why do that? Like, if she's gonna give him safe passage, why not just keep him as a person? And it felt like it was some sort of plot device just so he's like this cute little mouse. So Claire Danes can do her whole speech, which is kind of amusing and funny and tongue in cheek. But that whole thing was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I would say that the flaw isn't that it's not necessary. It's more that it would have been nice to have had some sort of scene to indicate why that character, Ditchwater Sal, Melanie Hill, why she, or not even why, just to establish that she was doing that out of, that's more in her character, I guess, or whatever. I mean, she clearly is a witch with the powers of, polymorphine or whatever you want to call it, changing people into animals and stuff. She's done it several times in the movie before that. And so it didn't seem like it was a very difficult thing for her to do. I kind of thought she was doing it more for her own safety. She didn't really trust the guy or anything like that. But and then she felt like she definitely got enough payment by getting the magical flower back to go ahead and do it. The only thing that reads a little false to me is that it's one of those moments in movies where they play lip service to the reasoning. They don't really show us the reasoning. Like I don't really feel, especially with her, but kind of like using the truth serum spell thing on
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Thank you, Michelle Pfeiffer, earlier in the movie. It doesn't really establish her as a very trustworthy person. And yet, in this scene, after she's turned him back into a person, she just kind of has some little line about like, oh, he'll be better later. I'm a woman of my word or something like that. And then she's like, I'm going to go off and get drunk or something like that.
Yeah, no, it sort of makes sense, but it could have been solved with a throwaway line. Her saying, I'll get you there. I just don't want you to do some weird thing.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is. They needed that kind of line. That would
yeah,
worked.
I wonder about both those things, both those complaints. If in the book they're done better, or if you kind of wonder if they're just abbreviated from the book and something's missing there.
That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, so let me tell you my thing about the Princess Bride.
Yes.
And then maybe we could what's up with these movies that for some reason they have these odd flaws. But in the Princess Bride, when Fezzik finds Inigo and he fills him in on the whole what's going on, that the wedding's about to happen and that the blah blah blah. For some reason, Inigo knows about the romance between the Princess Bride and Wesley. And I'm like,
Fezzik?
no, well, that's the question. How Inigo shouldn't know about it, and Fezzik shouldn't know about it. Fezzik should know maybe that the bride, that there's a bride and she's gonna marry the prince. But how does he know that the man in black is in love with her? He was never
it's very
there.
Thin.
It's very thin.
I think my only answer to that would be in the scene with the booing woman. So even though that's a dream, the idea being that the gossip of the entire town, the entire region or whatever, was that she got kidnapped. And it turns out that one of the people who eventually got to her and got her away from the kidnappers or whatever was her long lost love, and that they blah, 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 blah. The whole story plays out and whatever. And that whole part of the story had gotten out, but that she went back to the king or the prince, sorry, to spare his life, or maybe that part wasn't mentioned or whatever. But the fact that there's like a scene where she's, picturing these people booing her for making that decision, and whatever, as if it's like an unfaithful decision or whatever. I mean, that's the only thing. And I think that's thin. I think that's really thin.
Yeah, because when you think about it, it kills the whole climax of the movie. If all they know that there was a man in black and he was able to best both of them and kill
Vizzini,
they don't know anything. They know about the bride because they kidnapped the bride. They don't know the backstory. I think, like, because he never reveals that he was her long lost love until after he frees her from them, and then they drop down the hill and then escape into. So the only explanation would be, and again, this could have been fixed plot wise, is if there was some soldiers, because Fezzik is in the brute force, the brute squad. If there are some soldiers, you know what? It can work. It could work, yeah, because there were soldiers with them when they catch them. Like when the
Yeah,
prince and what's his face catch them,
the Count and the
the
Prince.
man with the count with the six fingers. When the prince and the count catch them in the forest, there's a few soldiers with them. If those soldiers, there's rumors running between all the soldiers, they probably say, "Oh yeah, they caught the man in black. He was a lost long love of this and the count." And the prince probably they don't know because he whispers it to the count, take him to the pit of despair, type of thing. Don't send him to his ship. So maybe the soldiers had that rumor around, and that's how Fezzik knows it, and that's how he fills in Inigo.
He is
But
on the Brute Squad.
yes, but that could have been a one-line fix.
I
And like
agree.
like why does Fezzik know this? Like there were rumors about like from the and the soldiers and the blah 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 that the about the Man in Black and his love that
You know what
is
it
to
would
marry
have
the prince.
been, I think, if you could have had that scene where he's hearing about that from the other members of the Brute Squad, and then while that scene happens, have Count Rugen and some of his regular men, not people on the Brute Squad, um, ride up in horses or something like that. And if Fezzik looks over and sees the six fingers on his hand, then that would explain why he immediately goes to find, drunken Indigo and then sober him up to tell him, hey, here's the guy. I found the guy, blah, blah, blah. He's in the castle. You need to go get your revenge.
Yeah. No, for sure. But it's yeah, and there's a few things like this that are a bit
Thin.
not a bit thin, but it's sort of all works. I was curious, Matt. So
Yeah,
you rated this obviously higher. You said 8.5, right, for Princess
yeah,
Bride.
I think so.
Um, yeah. Overall, like, were there any aside from what I mentioned, like any other flaws or reasons why you rated it, or was it an overall impression that you had as far as the movie?
Well, it's a joy of a movie, no matter how you put it. And I think that you have some valid criticisms, but I mean, honestly, I think a large part of the ending with uh, Inigo and Fezzik. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those names properly.
Sounds right to
Uh,
me.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
it, Toward the end of the movie, it wasn't even really related to Wesley's relationship to the princess. It was more related to what he was able to do to Wallace Shawn, who I love as an actor, by the way, uh, and kind of free them from his grasp. And I I think that you're dwelling in your criticism too much on the relationship between Wesley and the princess,
Buttercup.
and right, Princess Buttercup. Actually, by the way, that's one of the reasons why I knocked it down a few pegs. I really hate that name.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
But that's part of the joke. Yeah,
yeah,
Princess Buttercup.
yeah, but 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 yeah, I think that realistically, that relationship is really just between those two, and the motivation for Inigo and Fezzik wasn't really okay. We're going to get these two people back together. It's like, holy crap, this guy liberated us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes and no, but that guy liberated us. Yes, but the criticism there is that when he screams in the pit of despair and everybody can hear it, he said like the man in black is making that noise. It's like, how do you know? That sound can only be made by someone who's lost something truly great, like true love. Like he gets on as if he intimately knows him. And I'm thinking, like, did they talk about that in the fencing in the
They
beginning?
didn't.
They didn't. No. So the only explanation there is Fezzik heard rumors about the romance between them, and then that he is in the pit of despair. But Inigo
It's
interpreted
basically like
that.
it's almost like a perfect movie
Yeah.
if you just accept the fact that at the point where it cuts back to the grandfather and the son, and then he opens the book up again, that at that point in time when they restart the story, that every single character on screen for any reason whatsoever is caught up on everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gil, let me just explain why you're wrong.
Okay. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. That moment, like, okay, he's screaming and nobody screams like that unless he's lost something. That doesn't require context. I don't think that requires context. I don't think that requires having a previous conversation. That's just somebody understanding, holy fuck, this is somebody who isn't just suffering, but somebody who knows that somebody who he cares about is suffering. That's the whole point of the scene.
Oh yes, he relates it to, like, I made that noise when my father was killed, the day my father died. I
Yeah.
understand that's how he relates to it, but how does he know that it's because it's true love? Like, he could say, like, you know, uh, how does he know it's the Man in Black? How does he
How
know
does
that specific scream?
how
Fezzik would have had to tell him about the romance between them, about the fact that she's marrying the prince, and I'm sure she told him about a few things, but I don't know. We explained, by the way, we explained my criticism away. We basically said that there's probably a rumor amongst the soldiers because some people other than the prince and the count did see Wesley being caught along with the princess. So that's probably how Fezzik came about that information. It's just that when you watch it, and my wife actually was the one who caught this, is like, how does he know that? And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, you kind of have to do some assaults there. It's like, how does Fezzik know that?
well,
He's also not supposed to be super smart, by the way. It's like the
Yeah,
whole
I mean, how
character.
does he even know that the guy has 6 fingers?
Yeah, exactly.
well,
But again, because he's in the brute squad, so he's connected with soldiers. There's rumors running around that he knows about the count, he knows about the princess, he knows about the love affair,
Yeah.
and he knows about the man in black in the pit of despair. If but they skip that part. Like, they say he fills him in, but it's like, but how? Like, about what? That's
well,
all. But I agree that I'm wrong, as long as the idea that rumors amongst the soldiers made it to the brute squad, and that's how he knows the
well,
whole story.
I mean, how does anybody know true love as the third person in the scenario? Like, I mean, it's. I mean, I certainly can't notice it. I certainly can't find it, uh, at least not on a regular basis. So, uh, I, I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, and this is actually kind of relevant. Like, okay, well, fantasy, eventually you need to suspend disbelief, but you have to believe that characters are behaving like human beings logically. Uh, I mean, I think that it's entirely within the realms of fantasy to have a character hear a scream and say, "Oh, that's true love."
Yes, but he's relating it to his father dying. So yeah, it is losing a love in your life, but
Yeah,
he would need context to connect the two, because there could be many people. He doesn't know what the men in black sounds like. That scream could have been some random dude who's also. He would have had to know that the men in black is in the pit of despair and being tortured, and he connected the dots because he's smart. Because Fezzik is not super smart, but he's smart enough to overhear rumors and relay it to Inigo. Inigo is the one that is the emotional one, the smart one, the educated one, and he connects the dots. It's just that it's not explained how Fezzik knows everything. That's all.
All right.
But they do say that he fills them in. It's just where did he get it from? Like they could have said like from rumors within the Brute Squad and the soldiers of the castle. That's it. One line, solve it. I wouldn't even have to bring it up if they had just thrown that in there. Just a mild oversight.
Fair enough. I'm not going to press on this, but
Yeah. I don't want to like because we've solved it.
Yeah.
Like we pretty much came up with a solution. It's just that I feel
Right.
like it's such a big thing because they basically join forces to to get the count, to get the prince, to get the princess, and but they don't connect. Like as far as they're concerned, the Men in Black is the bad guy. Like the last time they saw him, he was the bad guy.
He's pretty nice to both of them, though.
He's nice. No. He had mutual respect and everything, but they
But
don't
he didn't
know.
kill them. He could have.
Yeah. No, for sure. There's definitely the whole thing is very gentlemanly, like gentlemen like between them, but sorry.
Gentlemanly. That's going to be our that's going to be the neologism for
Yeah. But
for
in
the
any
night.
case,
But
yeah, but anyways, it's too bad we got stuck on that too long, but yeah, and there's a few other things, but overall the point is, and maybe this is the whole point about comparing these movies, is in spite of these minor plot issues and stuff, they're very enchanting. It's just very enjoyable all throughout. A few things like with Vicini too. I feel like why does Vicini need to like why does he sit at a table with wine? Where did that come from? Because Vicini's not setting up the test of the you know the whole
He's a little wannabe aristocrat.
yeah, like what where does the wine and table come from? And Wesley is the one who actually brings up the test. So it's all too convenient that he sits at a table with wine and he's holding a knife to her. Why not just kill her? And that's the other thing. If they kidnap her, they have to, I guess, kill her at the border with the other country. That's how they're gonna start the war. So he couldn't kill her early. But then why not just keep running with her? Why is he waiting for him? Because I guess because he's afraid he'll catch up.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy's like an athletic dude, and he's short, and he's dragging along a woman in a flowing long dress.
So he's just trying to see what he can do, just holding a knife to her and see if he can outwit him just with
Or get
words.
him to just like leave for fear of him killing her.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Maybe you can tie him up or something. And then the last thing I would say is once Wesley does kill him and takes her, why does he put up the show like the face that he doesn't reveal? First of all, I don't buy it that she doesn't know it's him. In spite of the mask, because if it's true love, she would know. And secondly, because this is like Superman with the glasses and stuff. But and secondly, I really don't believe that the reason why he's keeping up his mask and is because he's upset at her that she's about to marry the prince. Like I know deep inside he knows she still loves him. Like he doesn't really question her love, but he's like testing her. I felt like that was not a bit unnecessary, but again, I forgive it because it's so lovely. It's so nice when they topple down the hill and like as you wish, that whole thing. It's we wouldn't have that without that minor oversight. So
Even when I saw it as a young child, the first time I saw that, I was like, man, why is he being such a dick? And then, years later growing up, I kind of felt like it was a little more appropriate because I was like, man, he's got feelings too, like they pledged their undying love to each other, and then she's getting married to a royal dude, which seems like she just married off for money kind of thing. I feel like there should have been more of a turn, I think, from the way he's acting to the way he's acting after he hears her say that she's not in love with him, and he goes, "Oh, you just admitted you're not in love with him," kind of thing. Like, I feel like after that he should have kind of lightened up a little more. But like you just said, Gil, no matter how awkward I think that whole scene is, the moment she goes like, "Oh, Wesley, my love," and just dives down this hill that is way too steep. I mean, like,
Yeah. No, it's
people
almost
that you
like
have to do this thing. I mean,
stupidly steep.
I can't stop laughing. Like, when I see that, they're just
And
like,
why
"Oh,
does she
oh, oh,
tumble
oh,
like
oh."
that? Why doesn't she just like slide or something? She literally just tumbles.
It's so stupid that it makes me laugh every time I see it. It's
Yeah, it's
probably one
weird.
of my 5 biggest laughs in the whole movie is them tumbling down that hill.
Yeah, it's something, and maybe this is also a good place of comparison. That tone, that tone of, they have that like priest with the whole. That's the most Mel Brooks moment is like
Oh
when
yeah.
he's Mawedge. Like that's such a Mel Brooks thing.
It's funny
Yeah.
when you brought up Mel Brooks earlier, I was going to mention it too, but like you said it feels like when I think one of the things is just the like how he managed to shove a bunch of like to obviously shove a bunch of very visually Jewish characters, into this like
Well, yeah, it's
medieval
Rob
story.
Reiner, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't mean it's weird that he did it. I just mean that's to me what stands out as being really Mel Brooksy.
Yeah, it's definitely a very Jewish movie.
Yeah,
Um,
in all
but
the
but
best
yes,
ways.
exactly. But yeah, what is it about this that tone? I really think it's not easy to nail that tone.
Not at all.
And that's why the Princess Bride, I feel, and maybe this is where you can come in, Jason, and make your argument why these two movies are equal. Is I feel like the tone in Princess Bride is more perfect than it is in Stardust. That it's not as consistent in Stardust, or at least it's not as enchanting or enjoyable, or nails it just right. Like it gets a bit too ridiculous. Like for example, in Stardust with the brothers and the dying and stuff, it's good. It's good stuff, but I don't know. It's just not on par for me with the Princess Bride. So what is like? Do you think, tone wise, how similar are these movies, and do you feel like they both nail it as well, and that's why you rate them the same or close?
I don't think they have the same exact tone. I don't think they're supposed to have the exact same tone. We've kind of just talked about what the Princess Bride's tone is. And I think a lot of that tone is not just set up in the way that they nail all those scenes that we're talking about. The I love that IMDb refers to him as the impressive clergyman. Um, but the scenes we were talking about earlier, the fire swamp, that like the little midget in the rat costume, the ROUS. It's like
Yeah.
so funny, and Billy Crystal saying, "You are the Brute Squad." I die every single time. His delivery is so and we haven't even talked about like inconceivable. I mean, like,
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah.
all perfect. It's so perfect. And Andre the Giant is just outstanding. But anyway, all that stuff is so perfectly done. But really, if we're talking about the tone of the movie, it's really framed in its foundation is in the fact that it's being told to Fred Savage by his grandfather. And so every time something gets a little too intense or a little too mushy or a little too something, they have the ability to just like back out and be like, ah, and then make fun of it or comment on it in a way that to us as the audience is funny, and it just sets up a tone that's, I don't know how else to describe it. We've all been talking about it for the last 5 minutes. It's just really, really well done. It's really great. I
Yes,
don't think
that's a big
Stardust
advantage.
has
I
that
think
same
I
exact tone.
yeah, I think the framing in Princess Bride is what really makes it, even though it dates it.
It does.
Makes
Yeah.
it's got the whole 80s look to the whole thing with the kid
Yeah.
with Fritz Savage, but it's okay because the movie itself is timeless,
No,
so
it's
you
so
you
perfect.
forgive it. But
Yeah.
but the but yeah, that room is such a 80s time capsule.
Yeah.
uh, but but the but the framing of it really is one of those movies that's about storytelling, but not in any sort of cliche way. It's just really like plays with the genre so well, and yeah, no, I think that's the big advantage it has on Stardust for sure.
I mean, so continuing what I was saying, I don't think they were supposed to have the same tone. I mean, not that this necessarily connects to tone, but I think that you can draw a lot of comparisons with what kind of tone a movie is going to have. All other things being equal, like content and stuff. When you look at like the rating, I mean, The Princess Bride is a very, very PG movie. It's not G, it's not like something for 4-year olds or something. There's tense moments and stuff like that. It's a good, great, really great PG movie. Stardust is very much a PG-13 movie. I mean, the content is serious enough to warrant even higher, but Matthew Vaughn is like a fantastic director, and he's able to get these, and not just him, obviously the writing is there too, obviously, but they use things like the brothers becoming ghosts to lighten every single moment that gets a little too dark. I mean, it's almost like you mentioned it earlier, that aspect of the brothers killing each other. It's almost like that scene is so well written. I'm sure it's in the book is the same way. I would be surprised if it wasn't. It's like setting up the audience to let you know this is how this movie is going to go. He's still in the first part of the movie where he's giving a bunch of narration to set you up for what the movie's like. And they tell you about, here's what's going on. There's the king of the whole land, and he's about to die, and he's passing it on to his kids, and so on and so forth. And he talks about how there's only 4 brothers left out of 7, and that's really weird because for generations, their family has literally been killing themselves to just determine who's going to be the successor. That's really dark. And then after talking about it, they show it. They have the guy walk up to the window, and Septimus pushes him out the window. And then he doesn't just fall down this big old tower. He falls down the tower, and there's a giant cliff beyond that. It's like, it's really bad. But
No,
then
they go a bit far
just when
with
you're
the
about to go, oh God, and like reel back from it, you get this comical moment of these like, semi-transparent ghosts sitting on a little shelf together, and now there's only 3, or now there's 4 ghosts and 3 living brothers, and you can see in the past how they've all died, and they are all they're just kind of there with it. They're not happy, but they're kind of, they're enjoying watching, at least, even though now that they're dead, they're pissed about that, but they're like, let's make the best of this situation. And that's humorous, it's comical, and it sets the tone for what kind of movie it's going to be. There's going to be some weird crap in this movie that takes you emotionally in a weird, like 90-degree angle from what you were expecting. It's like it twists you at the last second, and that's kind of what they establish. And it's not exactly the same, but I think it works phenomenally in terms of tone. I don't know what else to say. It's not supposed to be the same. It's definitely not the same. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's I think I'll say one thing. I think I've only watched this movie twice, like the when it came out and now, Stardust. I believe so. Might have been my third viewing, but I didn't remember that Tristan.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that he was the son of the sister. I completely
Mm-hmm.
forgot that his mother was the long lost sister, and then he
Princess.
becomes princess. Yeah, and that made him the next king, and it wrapped really well and stuff. Like I like the whole thing about because he's in love with the star, they're gonna live forever. But after the grandson was like, you grow up, then at that point might as well leave because you don't want to stick around to everybody around you dying and getting old. So they go to the stars. It's like, oh, this is like all very, very sweet stuff. So
It's not just sweet, it's damn near perfect.
yeah, Yeah. No, I'm telling you, this is why I compared these movies because
Yeah.
I feel like they both really succeeded what they do, even though it is different for sure. I mean, it's Stardust is a more modern movie, and Neil
Yes.
Gaiman's like really goes out there with the plot devices and characters and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing I was gonna ask you, I don't know, do you feel like that either of these movies are not portraying women well? Like as far as like I feel like both women in these movies, at least the lead ones, like the Princess Bride and the star Claire Danes, I feel like
Yvain.
they're yeah, Yvain. I feel like they're good characters. I mean, the Princess Bride, Princess Buttercup is very strong-willed and she's stubborn and she sticks with on her gut feeling that Wesley's going to come back for her. And the star also is not a pushover. She's a slight pushover. She's not very confident, but she tries to stand for herself. So I don't know. Do you feel like as far as a romance movie, is it like one-sided that it's all about the guy or?
Not at all.
Well. I mean, just comparing Robin Wright roles. I mean, her role in The Princess Bride is a hell of a lot better than Jenny Reed and Forrest Gump.
You're talking about in terms of being a positive role model.
Yeah.
Positive role model.
um,
Well, but Jenny is
So-
definitely an interesting character.
yeah,
She's not a
very
cliche female
understanding and
character.
accepting.
Hey,
I'm talking
Forrest.
about like I'm just talking about in romance movies how like it's always they're just the girlfriend or the wife, like they're not as interesting as
So,
the guy.
I would say, that I think both of these movies achieve something that I wanted to talk about this, and I'm trying to think of how to just start this. I think both of the characters are fantastic. I think that right now in movies today, we are seeing a really rough time because writers, I don't know if it's because of laziness or being inept or something out of touch or just bad. I don't know. I don't think there's very many people who know how to write a strong female character because now that we've been through the 80s and 90s and now that strong female characters are more popular than ever, writers tend to see that as a strong female character is a female character that is a warrior and can fight. They don't realize that strong doesn't have to mean that. I think that these two characters are fantastic because they're both courageous and strong in certain ways, but I can't think of any movie recently that was made that had the balls to make something like this, like Stardust. We'll say, and the reason I bring it saying Stardust, not the other one, is because the other one's 1987 or something like that, whatever it was, right? It was like a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, think about it. So Yvain, Claire Danes' character, is very smart, and she drives the plot as a character, not just as a device. Her character is equally as developed as Tristan's. We see her making decisions throughout the whole thing when she's talking to the unicorn about leaving him behind and things like that. She takes charge for her own situation and so on and so forth. She's not a warrior. She's not tough. She's not any of these things that writers nowadays feel is completely obligatory. She doesn't know kung fu, and when I say this, I want to make it perfectly clear that I absolutely love Sarah Connors. I love Ripley. I love half the characters that Charlize Theron has played. I love every action character that Gina Davis has ever played. There are a few great, amazing female warrior characters in phenomenal stories, and I can't get enough of them when they're written well. I just think that today it's getting lazy. It's really, really lazy, and we're not getting quality characters anymore like that. And I think that if more people could look at movies like this, where her character is absolutely strong, she's absolutely amazing, she's absolutely something that drives the plot in every way and the story, and she's very important in every aspect of the movie. She's easily the first or second main character, and yet they don't have to make her belittle all the men around her. They don't have to make her win at every single thing she does. They don't have to make her a Mary Sue. They don't have to make her into some sort of unstoppable combat machine. Like, she is incredibly powerful in her own way. And even though she needs Tristan, but in the very end, when the witch is about to kill them, Michelle Pfeiffer is coming at them with this big giant like crystal meat cleaver thing, and and it's Yvain that ends up killing her using the power of her love with Tristan, not doing some sort of roundhouse kick to her face or something that comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, no, I think definitely the strength is really
Yeah.
is that they're interesting, they're complicated, but they're feminine. They're
Yes.
delicate and they're feminine,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they have to be weak.
Right.
And that's not perfect for every story. That's not something we need in every single, we don't need that kind of a character in, say, like a modern romance movie that's just about people working in office buildings or something like that. It's not 100% necessary. But for a movie about a princess, actually, there's a princess in Stardust too. It's just not the one we're talking about. That's okay. It's okay to tell a classic fantasy story about a soldier or a prince running off on an adventure to save a princess. That's okay. There's nothing like anti-feminine about that. There's nothing that's like toxic about that at all. It's a fantastic
Yeah.
story, and it's done very well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's difficult for three heterosexual men to talk about this. It's one of those things where, like, when you look back on, as Jason pointed out, Linda Hamilton, playing Sarah Connor, she spent a lot of time getting into shape for Terminator 2. And as a result of that, I look at her in Terminator 2 and think, this is a woman who could kick the shit out of me.
Yeah.
If she wanted to. And I want to be on the good side of this woman because I don't want her to kick the shit out of me. Right? And there are different kinds of power. And a lot of women exude their power by being feminine, by being strong, in that men will do whatever the fuck whatever the fuck you want us to do, because you're a woman, you're feminine, you can control us. And that's something that I think Claire Danes exudes in Stardust, and I also think that that's something that Robin Wright exudes in The Princess Bride. In like, your strength is in your your femininity. I,
Femininity.
yeah, I was
I'm correcting the native speaker, so I'm kidding.
yeah, right. I was stumbling over that word for a moment, but we don't need series like The Equalizer, where we're supposed to believe that Queen Latifah can beat the living snot out of a 25-year-old who's in shape, uh, you know, with no issue, and never get a scratch on her. We don't need that in order to believe that women can be strong. We need women who know how to. We need female characters who know how to exercise their personal strengths. Strength comes in different forms. I don't know why this is a hard thing for people to recognize. And uh, I I I think that Stardust did it well, and I think that The Princess Bride did it well, and I think that Terminator 2 did it well. I think that the Alien movies did it well. Everybody can be vulnerable, but you don't need to make people Mary Sue's. And I'm probably going to get canceled. I'm probably going to get
Have to go there.
thrown under the bus and deplatformed and all that shit for everything that I just said. But I stand by it. You know,
I think Matt, I think what you're saying, I hope I'm reading this right, is, I mean, um, there's no reason we can't have both.
yeah,
When a plot or a story, when a story calls for it, having a character like Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson's character, is awesome. When
yeah,
when you can justify what she's doing and how she's doing it, that's great. And you can also just do it without some sort of science fiction justification. If you want to have some giant Amazonian woman like Grace Jones in the Conan movies and everything like that, that's awesome. That's all well and good. It doesn't mean we should be able to have plenty of movies with characters like this in Stardust and The Princess Bride, who are just as strong and just as awesome without being like, warriors.
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think also that the men are not butch, like they're pretty sensitive and not the stereotypical
Yeah.
hero. Like Wesley is
Doesn't
not.
Tristan say to her, he says at one point in confidence, I don't remember exactly what point it is, but he says to her, "Can you imagine me actually killing someone?" And they laugh about it.
But I guess that's just good storytelling. That's the thing. These are
Yeah.
good storytellers, both whether it's like Matthew Vaughn, Neil Gaiman, or Rob Reiner, and
Yeah.
William Goldman. These
Yeah.
are just good storytellers that create whole characters that are
Yeah.
interesting, and that's what it is. I'm trying to think of an example of, say, a fantasy movie where the woman is just a throwaway character with no development. But if you have good storytellers, every character on the screen interests them and
Yeah.
has some personality. And as long as you give them a personality and a inner life, then whether it's a woman or man or a little person, whatever that is, it's
Willow.
it it could be, instead of being stereotypical, it could be interesting. It could just be whatever it is, and that's the biggest thing. Like, it could be whatever it is, whether it's a tomboyish woman that beats everybody up, or is more imposing, or a witch, or I mean, some people might be critical
Whatever.
of the fact that, like, they portray in Stardust some of the women as witches. Yeah, so what? But the witches are also cool to some degree. I mean, that they're
They
empowered
certainly
Yeah.
in
are in
their
that
own
movie.
way. What?
I said they certainly are in that movie.
Yeah. So
Well,
I mean, and there's nothing wrong about women being villains. That's the thing. We have to be okay if we're gonna be okay. If we want to have all the characters to have equal treatment, we have to be okay with women being villains, with women being complicated, being fragile, and being very powerful, whether it's physically or mentally or whatever it is. Like, they have to be as complex as any other character. But I'm glad that there's good characters out there, and these are examples. Like, these two movies are good examples of that. So.
It's funny that we like talked about these two, I mean, I don't know about where you guys feel on this, but like, to me, these two movies, when it comes to fantasy, I mean, I read and watch a lot more science fiction than I do fantasy. I'm certainly more biased towards science fiction, but
uh-huh.
and I think fantasy is a little harder to define. There's a lot of stuff that I think is just more like adventure films with a little bit of a unworldly aspect to it that a lot of people would probably consider fantasy. But anyway, all I was saying is that if you take out all the like Disney films, which kind of, let's face it, they've got a lot of really fantastic, their old classic Disney movies have like fantastic fantasy movies. But if you exclude those and like anime and stuff like that, which also has a lot of good fantasy stuff, just talking about like live action fantasy movies, like, I mean, I would put these two movies both in my probably definitely top 10, maybe even top 5, of fantasy movies that are out there. So it's like, I guess that is one other reason to compare them, like we were talking about before.
Yeah, they are exceptional. I mean, as far as we're concerned, I guess Matt is the.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would put Stardust in my top 5 when it comes to fantasy movies, but that doesn't say jack shit for me. I
Because
mean,
you don't like fantasy movies. That's
yeah, right.